So what we have here is the prepare case screen, and this is the kind of home base for working on a case. What you're seeing here initially is a section for defendant information, case information, officer information, and witness information. Now you'll notice that all this data is mostly filled out already, and that's because we're pulling over data from many sources of case tracking, the courts, Department of Corrections, the police department, as well as what's been entered by intake in the complaint typing system, using the crime report, and also the status sheets, the AP6 status sheets. Grand juries, the case assignment information also is reflected here as well. So on the most part, setting up the case is going to basically involve just reviewing the information. And you do need to review the defendants and the case information. I'm not going to go into these forms, each of these individual screens right now, because when you go into them, you'll see they have their own tutorial that will explain. But what your main thing to do here is that you're going to click and hit edit, and that would bring up a screen relating to Schimel-Crum. Likewise, click and edit. If you for some reason discover that you need to add a new defendant at this point, you would just hit add and you would get a blank screen. So basically you would do the same thing on the case form. You need to go in and review the information. You might make some changes on the ADA, etc., etc. The officer and witness information, you probably want to review what's there already. You certainly want to add officers or witnesses who are going to be testifying on the case in grand jury, and you could do that by hitting add. So it's all pretty straightforward. If you make a mistake, then you highlight it. If you feel this officer shouldn't be on this case, and then you would hit delete, and it would disappear. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see 7 buttons. What this button is the prosecution memo button, and that is going to let you get into more of the meat of the grand jury presentment. So once you filled out this information here, you would hit the prosecution memo button, and it would jump to this screen over here. And again, I'm not going to go over this at this point because it has its own tutorials, and you'd be able to get more description as to what's happening here. But that would be the first step that you have to do. Once the case goes to grand jury, there is a and there are presentments. You would be going in here to do the finding slips. Likewise, you can look at the case in the all course display. You could view documents that have been created on this case, such as the notices, such as the process memo, such as the instruments. Ultimately, when the case is filed, you would come back and you would click on readiness notice, and you would generate the readiness notice. All of these things work in a flow. So for instance, you can't hit prosecution memo until we've made sure that you've reviewed this information up here. You can't hit finding slip until the system assigns an indictment number, which would have happened after the prosecution memo has been approved. You can't hit the readiness notice button until the system has a record of the case being filed. So as you'll proceed through this program, you're going to notice that the system might at times say you can't do this now, because this is all predicated on a certain workflow that is fixed and kind of controls the process. So I'm going to end this now, and you would proceed to whatever other form you're interested in doing, and again you would see whatever tutorials were associated with those forms.